Welcome, golf fans, pursuers of knowledge and the almighty dollar. This is your golf guru bringing you the U.S. Open. These are my money picks, my favorite bets. I'm going to give you guys my top 15 DFS picks. Also going to break down my actually 4 favorite bets for the U.S. Open. And I want to thank you all for stopping by. So let's get into this and figure out who you guys want to play, or at least who I'm recommending. Okay. Just a couple notes on the course breakdown. I wanted to mention there was some information that was brought out regarding the rough at Torrey Pines, and from everything that I'm hearing, that the rough is not as penal in the fairway area. Now, what I mean by that is what some of the players are saying is that they were expecting the rough to be thicker and consistent along the fairways. And what I guess from my understanding is there's areas that the rough is not as bad. Now, when you get around the greens, the rough is higher and it is, more penal, more thicker. So just wanted to make that side note. Also, I was mentioning about the redesigns for Reese Jones. It was 2001, not 2011. All that means is that he did the redesign before the 2008 U.S. Open. And then lastly, I mentioned that there's smaller green complexes here. When I look at 4,500 square feet on average for a green, the average size is 5,000. So I think that's a little smaller, but again, I've heard some contradictions that there is larger green complexes. All that said, I'm going to be looking more and more on the putting and around the green side as some of my plays. I'm letting you know that right now, and I'll get into more specifics as we get into this information. Okay. Lastly, on the skill set rankings, I just want to show this just in case you missed the preview show. And maybe a little bit of this just changed. But still, my first number one skill set that I'm looking for is approach and ball striking. Probably weighing a little more on the ball striking. My next, though, which I moved up, is putting. If you look at statistics back over guys that have had success here and won between the Farmers, the U.S. Open, it was all about the putting within 5 to 10 feet, again, being POA surfaces. There is guys that are more comfortable on these surfaces than others. Some guys can get frustrated by these surfaces. So I'm looking for the guys that, really do well putting 5 to 10 feet in on POA. Also, 3-putt avoidance, again, with that stated. Driving distance with, fairways and regulation is important, but these fairways are pretty narrow. So what's different than Torrey is that when they mow this, they mow the fairways even tighter, let the rough grow out. Comparative to Torrey, you've got a wider fairways. That's another difference in how this is going to play, and also the number 6 hole being changed from a par 5 to a par 4, which makes it a 71 and gives you less scoring opportunities on the par 5s. I think around the green is going to be super important, as I mentioned about the heavy rough. Scrambling, it's going to be times you have to do that, and then prox to the pin, 200 plus to 175 to 200 due to the length of some of these holes. You got 6 par 5s at 450 to 500, so we're looking heavily at that. Always par 3 efficiency. You got to manage those. And then again, try to score on the par 5s. And they are long ones ranging at 575 to 620. Okay, so that was the guys that I was looking at. Okay, and then the last thing I want to go over is comp courses, guys that have done well at these comparable courses. And I'll go over the ones that I'm looking at. Of course, the Farmers Insurance Open with a focus, of course, on Torrey Pines South. You've got typically a par 72. It's POA. You've got the Genesis Invitational course at Riviera. That is a par 71. That is POA, of course, also played in California. Also going to look at the U.S. Open in 2019 at Pebble Beach for 2 reasons. Of course, the length of the course is not similar, but the setup was tough with the rough. It was a coastal course and also played in California. So I think there's some similarities that we can glean from that. The World Golf Championships, the WGC of Mexico, the one not played at Concession, but the ones that were played previous at the Day Golf Chapultepec course, which is actually a par 71 and is on POA. And from a distance perspective, not as long, but it's definitely a longer, I think it's over 7,500 yards, that track. It's a difficult course. And then the last 3 would be looking over at, of course, Jack's Place, where we just saw. These are the tournaments that I just look at as a tougher regular season tournament to win. They're not going to have the same green types, but they are going to have high rough. So at the API, at the Memorial, and at Quail, you had a higher rough, a tougher tournament to win, a better class of field. So I think we could also bounce these tournaments off to see how they did in those areas. If you run a quick 12 rounds under the model that I'm using, the thing that I added in is this putting from 5 to 10 feet. I weighted it pretty heavily, as you see, 15%. Funny enough, DJ comes up number 1. This is looking over the last 12 rounds. I also believe this is on POA greens and over 7,400 yards. Yeah, there was filters on this. So that's going to get a little an older data because there's only so many courses that fit that. Okay, let's get into the analysis. Okay, so jumping over to Fantasy National, of course, this is where I do my research. I've mentioned it multiple times. Great tool, not affiliated, but I recommend it if you are doing your own research or whatever you're using today you're not happy with. Check it out. And I always do this kind of go over. Right now, I'm not using any filters. I'm just looking at the last 12 rounds of golf. I like to keep it very recent form when I do this analysis. Also, you're going to see a little different model than the larger one that we looked at. You're going to see here, this is the rank from the larger model. And then what I get is a kind of a quick snapshot of the things that are most important to me. And that's approach, ball striking, driving distance around the green, that 5 to 10 foot putting range. Also, what I think is important, I had the par 5s that I was looking at, but there's only 3 of them. And I think that, the guys that I'm picking are going to take care of the par 5s, relatively speaking. What I'm more interested in is how they do on POA from a putting split. Of course, over here, you've got recent results and then U.S. Open tournament history, which this is a little hard to go off. I mean, you could look at it and say, okay, well, you've got some of the same type of setups from the rough, maybe some length, but they're all a little different, right? So I talked about that comparative, like an Aaron Hills that you shot 16 under to Shinnecock Hills where Brooks Koepka shot 1 over. So with all that said, we can kind of do the analysis and break it down that way. And so right off the bat, I always typically state I do not like to, from a DFS perspective, pick the most expensive guy. But everything from an analysis standpoint, and everything's telling me that Jon Rahm should do very well at this event. And let's go and we'll click on that information. So over the life of his career, he gains, I'd say a little less than a half stroke when he putts on POA. This is his best putting surface versus the field. He can play in some wind, gains a stroke and a half if he's playing in windy conditions. His stroke gain total, of course, is just on the way up, up, up. And if we quickly pull in, so you're going to see that the Memorial is, I think it comes up as a miscut, but we all know he won that tournament if he would have got to play on Sunday. So I'm not worried about that. He's just been in great recent form. Now that he has found a new putter, that's a key thing for me. It's amazing once he got a putter that he was comfortable with and had confidence in on how quickly he turned around his putting game. If we go look at his history at the Farmers, of course, I'm sure if you've been watching any golf channel news, of course, he loves Torrey Pines. He proposed to his current wife at Torrey Pines. It was his first win. You can just see an exemplary, record playing there. Now, of course, again, this is showing the split of playing 2 rounds on the South course, 2 rounds on the North, but neither here or there. There's nobody that has a better history at Torrey Pines right now than pretty much Jon Rahm. If we go look at the other courses that I want to bounce these guys against, we look at the Genesis, which I think is a great course to look at. Again, California, POA, par 71. Not as difficult, but it's a difficult track and event to win. He's at a 5th, a 9th, and a 17th. So everything works out from there. Of course, the Memorial, we already know, he won it in 2020. He won it again this year. So long story short, can't have a better success there. And the U.S. Open, if you look at the one, this is the one I'm going to be looking at, is in 2019. This is the one at Pebble Beach. He came in 3rd. And again, which I think for me, personally, I want to use that one again, the POA, and also the ocean course or the oceanside course with the winds and the things, the temperatures that you're going to have to deal with. I think it's very relative. Again, I understand the length is off by about 600 yards, but other than that, very small greens that you have to get up and down around. If we look at the Arnold Palmer, he's actually never played at Bay Hill, which I thought that was interesting. And then the Wells Fargo at Quail, he had a miscut recently, but again, that was a bit due to the putting issues, and then he had a 4th back in 2017. So typically, as I always mention, I try to not pick. It typically does not work out for me. But everything logically and also purely just as a redemption for what just happened at the Memorial, I like to see him win. The next guy, of course, is Jordan. And, not that he's not a good play, but I feel like Jordan kind of peaked up, right? He had his kind of comeback. He had his win. He was having a lot of top 5, top 10 finishes. And then the Charles Schwab happened where he fell apart. Pretty much, I think, after the rain delay, he mentioned he came back. And so far, I have not seen where he's kind of got that two-way miss going again. And you just can't have that here. Now, Jordan around the greens and putting, we can just take a quick look so you can see from a putting perspective. You see Poa over the life of his career is his, least favorite surface. That's the simplest way to put it. So I'm actually going to be out on Jordan. I don't know if it was Jordan, but I know Rory, maybe it was Jordan too. I actually put a bet that on the miscut, make the cut, miscut. It's just kind of where I'm feeling. Of course, DJ, you can see where his game, around the green approach. Again, this is over the last 12 rounds. Is not where it's been. The putter, it kind of showed some life at the Palmetto for the first couple of days. And then he started having the putting woes again on Saturday. Made that kind of resurgence on Sunday. And then, had that, whatever it was, triple bogey. That was one hole. I'm not saying that DJ can't go out and, have a decent tournament. Don't think he can win it the way he's been playing. But anyways, I'm out on DJ. The next person that I am on, and I was kind of thinking about avoiding DeChambeau here. But again, everything that I know from a logical standpoint tells me I got to play Bryson. Of course, you can see, driving distance. We all know what he did at Winged Foot at the past U.S. Open. Of course, he's, we look at his prior results, past winner. The putting, is still a little nerve-wracking, but it was approach that he's starting to make a little comeback. But what really kind of pushed me a little bit over the edge was that you can see Poa is his best putting surface over the life of his career. I like that. You can also see if we bounce him against, if we look at the Farmers, so you could say, well, the Farmers, his past history at Torrey, but that was back even before the change of the distancing. He's had 2 missed cuts, but if we look at Genesis, miscut recently, but a 5th, a 15th, and a 41 before that. If we look at Memorial, an 18th, he's won there, or 22nd, he had a miscut in 2020. We look at how he did at the U.S. Open in 2019 at Pebble Beach. He had a 35th. And, of course, the win at Winged Foot, which I already mentioned. WGC Mexico, Chapultepec. This is a concession. This is the one you want to look at, 2020. He came in second. And I think that's a great comp course. I really do. We didn't get to see it recently, but if you've ever seen it, it is a tough track. We look at the Arnold Palmer. Of course, he won recently. He had a 4th, a 2nd. And lastly, we look at Wells Fargo. Yeah, remember he almost missed a cut and then ended up getting a 9th place there and a 4th previous. So everything, also from a rough perspective, we already know what he did at a heavy rough U.S. Open where it was just bomb it. And you've got room here to do it too. You don't have to really worry about getting in trees or trouble. I mean, there's this or that here or there, but nothing, like a Winged Foot where you can get a little off track. It's just getting out of the rough. I've already mentioned when you gain the distance, shorter iron into the green, and also his steep plane of attack allows him to really get out of the rough a lot easier than a lot of these guys. So under those circumstances, I got to stick with DeChambeau. Koepka, it's hard to fade, or not even saying I'm fading him, but hard to not pick him. Well, of course, you can see here with his success, and everything was kind of leaning. But, it's funny enough, if you go, except for the U.S. Open, if you look at all the other information, he actually loses on Poa. If we look at the Farmers, he's had 2 missed cuts recently, a 41st way back in 2015. So no success at Torrey in the past. We look at the Genesis. Again, California Poa course, a 38th, a 43rd. No success there. Of course, I mentioned we go to the U.S. Open. He actually came in second behind Woodland at Pebble Beach. Of course, he didn't play in the 2020 at Winged Foot due to injury. We look at the WGC Mexico. Let me take a look. So this one would count. He had a 27th at Golf Day Chapultepec. This was a concession, so not worried about that. Arnold Palmer, he had a 47th back in 2020 and a couple missed cuts. And then Wells Fargo, that's back in 2008. So on all that, and knowing that he is still not able to get down, to read the putts like he's like, of course, you saw what happened I'm trying to think what it was. It was a Byron Nelson, but even, I'm not going off the Palmetto, the cut there. That doesn't really bother me. I think he actually gained. Well, let's go look while we're here. I think he gained with the putter there. Nope, he lost 2.8 strokes. Lost 4.5 at the Byron Nelson. At the PGA, barely gained anything. Of course, he had that bad Sunday. So, yeah, all said, of course, it's a major. It's Brooks. He's got his, theory of technically he's got to beat about 35 guys. I think one thing you cannot find here is analysis on the mental game, and he has the mental it. But other than that said, I'm going to be, from a DFS perspective and even a betting perspective, not really playing Brooks. Rory, I've already mentioned we talked about the PGA, which I kind of called. He's just, for me right now, still not there. Of course, he had the win at Quail, the Wells Fargo. Showed a little bit, I guess, somewhat of life at Memorial. Let's go look at Rory just real quick. I'm only going to do this for a couple of the guys. But, of course, he loses on POA, not his best surface. If we look at the Farmers, he's had a pretty decent record here, a 16th, a 3rd, a 5th. So, you can look at that. The Genesis recently had a miscut, a 5th and a 4th. The Memorial, he had an 18th recently, a 32nd. What about it? Arnie, right? He actually had a chance. I think that's the Bay Hill. I think he fell apart. He was here on Sunday morning or Saturday to actually do something. His U.S. Open record, pretty solid, an 8th, a 9th. So a 9th at Pebble Beach. That's the one we're kind of looking at. And Wells Fargo, of course, he won recently and has had good success at Quail. But just at that price tag, I got to make a call on some guys, and I'm still seeing a little bit of waywardness. Mostly, supposedly, he's been working on his approach game with the pitching wedges and get a lower ball flight. So maybe he's got something to come out, but that's his 125 yards in has been a killer. The putter has been kind of a little bit back, and the driver, kind of back comparative to where it was. I don't know about around the Masters. Justin Thomas, I'm just going to make this real simple. The putter is still a disaster. You can see over his last 12 rounds, 5 to 10 feet against a field of 156. He's almost, last. Can that turn on a dime? Yep, it can. But as you can see here, over his life of putting, he does gain, but very barely. So, nothing really tells me that it's going to turn around here, but who knows? Morikawa, again, from an analysis standpoint, it looks like a really good fit. His tournament history at he's had a cut and a T35 at U.S. Opens in the past. You see approach he does well, ball striking. The distance thing could come into haunt around the green maybe a little, but been pretty solid with a new putting grip from 5 to 10 feet. If we look at, of course, he's been in the negative zone for putting, period, but POA is his worst surface. Of course, California kid, could definitely find something here. But we played in the Farmers when he played here just not too long ago. He had a 21st, the Genesis a 43rd and a 26th. The Memorial, he had a 2nd, of course, just lost in the playoff against Cantley, which cost me some money, and a 40th before that. And again, funny enough, if you kind of look at what did he do at the U.S. Open? So he had a 35th. So he really, when he plays in California, funny enough, just kind of going through this, I'm not seeing anything that's really screaming that he's got some kind of a hometown kind of advantage. I don't know if he's ever played. So this would be, let me just clarify, yeah. So that's the Chapultepec. So the WGC Mexico, he had a 42nd. So nothing there. So I guess what you're seeing is from a comparable courses that I'm looking at, and I guess he's never played Wells Fargo. There's nothing that's screaming to me. And so, again, just making a call. And again, you can see he ranks #1 in my model. But everything else that I know, I got to go with. And I'm out on Mr. Morikawa. Xander was kind of back and forth on. But, of course, you know, just look at his history at the U.S. Open. You know, you can look at it a couple ways. It's just screaming that he has a bad showing, but he's just been crazy. Again, you can see he ranks 16 on the big model. You can see he's, you know, top green on every area that I'm looking at. If we jump into like his putting splits and some of the deeper, his best putting surface is POA. Of course, he's from San Diego. You know, his stroke gain is nothing but on the way up. Been gaining with the putter over the last few rounds, gaining on approach, off the tee, around the green has been a little off and on. And then if we go take a look at the Farmers, of course, he had that second place just recently behind Patrick Reed. But, you know, kind of mixed results if you want. But if you look over the past 3 event times he's played, a 25th, a miscut, and a second. So I'd say it's decent. If you look at just the recent, the Genesis, a 15th, a 23rd, a 15th, a 9th. So again, you can kind of see where he plays maybe a little better in his hometown. The Memorial recently had 11th, a 13th, a 14th. So good showing there. The WGC Mexico, we want to look at these 3 down here. A 14th, a 14th, and 18th. Again, POA, par 71, tough track. Arnold Palmer only played there once, 24th, and Wells Fargo recently had a 14th and then a 72nd before that. So again, now everything that I could look at to point me in a direction was saying you got to play Xander. And so I am picking Xander. Victor Hovland, this was a tough one for me because I watched quite a bit of Victor. Had, you know, some DFS showdown plays with him. He just killed me. And it's the worst. I've mentioned this on the Memorial recap. It was the worst I've ever seen Victor hit the T-ball. It wasn't terrible with everything else, but man, if we actually go look, you can see here, does well. The 5 to 10 foot range, little suspicious. Of course, we already know around the green. He's getting better, but not the best. You can see his past results, and also I think it was the U.S. Amateur he played at Pebble, and he did very well. It's kind of the first time he ever got on my radar, probably a lot of people's radars. I wanted to go look at off the tee at Memorial for him. Well, funny enough, somehow, I don't know how, he says he gained 2.6 strokes off the tee. It was the putter that actually hurt him. Everything I saw, he was just hitting it all over the lot for him. But if we also go look at his, so Farmers just recently had a second place, again, after Patrick Reed winning. The Genesis, he had a 5th. We look at the Memorial, he had a 47th and a 48th. So right now, Muirfield's not his favorite. The U.S. Open, I already showed, he had a 13th at Wingfoot and then a 12th at Pebble Beach. That's the one for me that I'm looking at a little closer. WGC Mexico, that's concession, so that doesn't count. Arnold Palmer, not so great at Bay Hill, 49th, a 42nd, and a 40th. And lastly, Wells Fargo, recently he had a 3rd. So except for the Memorial, and the PGA wasn't great. I mean, it wasn't terrible, but it wasn't great. But the Memorial was what caused me to have a little bit of pause after, but he was on such a kind of a tear. But again, everything I'm looking for, he kind of ticks those boxes. Patrick Cantlay, again, another California-based kid. You know, you can look at his U.S. history over here. Nothing, or U.S. Open history, nothing great. But from my, what I call my KISS model, the smaller model, you know, really hitting a lot of the areas I like there. 9th in my larger model. Over his life, he's neutral on POA, but can handle the wind if need be. Still gaining on the way up of strokes. Course had finally a good putting round, so you can see where he lost 5 rounds in a row putting. So I'm hoping that stays consistent, that he keeps gaining there. If we go and look at the Farmers, so he's got a miscut, a 51st, and a miscut. So Torrey right now, you could say for him has not been a great place. You got the Genesis, though, at Riviera, another California course, POA, par 71. It's actually had really good showings, a 15th, a 17th, a 15th, and a 4th. Memorial, of course, he's won there twice. The recent win, we had to put an asterisk next to. The WGC Mexico, he had a 6 at Chapultepec. So that was back in 2019, so that's good. Never played Bay Hill, Arnold Palmer, and Wells Fargo, miscut recently. So you could actually make some cases, not to play Patrick, but everything that I see and going off a little bit of the resurgence on recent form, I'm going to go ahead and play him. And maybe we're kind of getting a little bit of a discount at 9,100. Patrick Reed, right? I mean, this kind of fits everything you'd want from a Patrick Reed. Of course, he's kind of a bulldog in the majors. From the eye test of a stroke gain model is not what you're always looking for, but the guy just grinds it out. Does gain on POA, of course, one of the better putters on tour. I think he's ranked number 3 as we speak. Can handle the wind. And of course, you know, he won recently at Torrey. He's had a really good showing there. Probably the best history comparative to John Rahm. If you want to look over, you know, the last 4 or 5 years at Torrey. Again, that includes the North Course. If we look at the Genesis, 51, 59, so nothing great there at Riviera. We look at Memorial, good showings there, a 5th, a 10th. You got an 8th in there. The U.S. Opens, the 2019 at Pebble, he had a 32nd, so nothing to write home about there. But the WGC Mexico, which I knew, is he's also won at Chapultepec. I was actually probably, off the top of my head, was his last win before the Farmers. So both courses are POA, both are par 71s, both are very tough. That was a correlation that I like. And we look at the Arnold Palmer. Recently had a missed cut, but he's had a 15th and a 7th at Bay Hill before. Last but not least, Wells Fargo, a 6th recently, an 8th, 28th. So he's done pretty well at Quail Hollow. Also, again, I think a comparable tournament. I'm not saying it's an exact match from a course perspective, but there's some similarities with rough, distance, tough, the field that he's playing against. So I like Patrick. Mr. Tony Finau, of course, you know, typically in majors, he's going to show up. You can see, you know, kind of either it's cut or, you know, almost like a top 10. He does everything very well except this putting at 5 to 10 feet. So that's really what you're hoping, is that he finally has a little bit of showing. And I believe he's negative on all putting surfaces. Nope. Okay, so he is positive, barely positive on POA, barely, you know, positive on bent. Of course, he can handle himself in the wind. He's got the distance. And I think what it was for me, because I wasn't really eyeballing Tony, but when I started to pull these comparables up, I really liked what I saw. So his record actually beats Reed, and I'd say is fighting there, right there with Rahm. He doesn't have the win, but of course he has that second place. Quite a few guys, I guess, tied for second at the Farmers. I don't remember that, but it's kind of funny how many guys had a second place finish for the recent Farmers. So great track record at Torrey. If you look at Genesis, of course, him and Max Homa battling it out there at the end. He's had 2 second places. So again, something about California, he tends to seem like he likes. You pull up the Memorial, pretty good showings there. 8th would be his most recent best finish. WGC Mexico, we want to look at this one. So he had a 25th. And if we look at Arnold Palmer, miscut recently, but a 28th and a 43rd in the past. And Wells Fargo, a miscut recently, but a 60th and a 21st. So it's all going to come down, as I always say, and we all know with the putter with Tony, if he just breaks even, doesn't lose strokes, I think he could actually have a nice finish. It'd be great. Could you imagine his first real win? Of course, he's got the Puerto Rico Open, but his first real win was a U.S. Open. That'd be awesome. Hideki, when I got to watch his Sunday round at the Memorial, I'm off on Hideki for a while. I just literally felt like he just kind of quit, and I'm just going to leave it at that. Of course, his around the green game it's hard to see it's showing up as this, but he's not that bad around the green. His putting, of course, it spikes, right? My theory was he did well at Augusta, and then I think it was at Memorial, which has also been, I thought he could have a good showing, and he just kind of fell apart there. Webb Simpson, he gains on POA. I'm kind of off web for a bit till he shows me. I've already mentioned this. He hasn't been doing web-like things. This showing just a 5 to 10 putting range. He's ranked 7th, but his putting overall has not been where it used to be. Not only does he not have distance, but he hasn't been hitting a lot of fairways. But, if he hits fairways, he's got that long, the hybrid, the 200-yard plus game. So, I could see him making a reason. You can see my model ranked him 20th. Will Z, funny enough, comes up 13th. Again, I'm just, I kind of feel like the Will Z crazy run is it's a little reality check is set in. So kind of off on Will Z at this time. Scotty Scheffler, you could probably make some arguments for Scotty. Let me just go look. I think it was the putters really has kind of got me off. Yeah, you can see putting. Okay, he almost loses a half stroke when he's on POA. Funny enough, Daniel Berger was the guy that I thought I was going to play. And then when I bumped him against all of the comparable courses, so you can see gains on POA, can handle himself in the wind. And if I pull up his pass at the Farmers, 3 miscuts in a row. If I pull up the Genesis, miscut. If I pull up Memorial, miscut recently. If we look at the U.S. Open, he had a 49th at Pebble Beach. WGC Mexico, he had a 14th. That was back in 2018. That would have been at Chapultepec. Arnold Palmer, miscut recently. Wells Fargo. So literally the courses that I think are the toughest events to win from a regular season in a WGC, he does terrible. So no can do on Daniel Berger. Terrell Hatton, of course, had a good show into Palmetto. I'm not really concerned about that. He's kind of had a mixed bag at the U.S. Open. If we look at Terrell Hatton, his favorite putting surface is POA. That I liked. And if we go look at some of his comparables, he's never played. Technically, I guess he's never played at Torrey Pines, so that could be interesting. Genesis, miscut. Memorial, he had a 33rd recently. I think I already showed the U.S. Open history. He had a 21st at Pebble Beach. WGC Mexico, he had a 6th place at Chapultepec. I like that. I don't know if that was of course, he's won the Arnold Palmer, had a 21st recently. So had some success at Bay Hill and Wells Fargo. He had a 42nd way back in 2018. Corey Connors, again, just been losing big time with the putter chipping. I don't think he can do enough to get around there and be effective, but we'll see. I mean, Louis just been amazing for him. You can see he clicks everything. He's 5th on my big model, gains ridiculously on POA. Let's pull him up real quick. So so what you saw there was over his last 12 rounds, he's given like a stroke and a half on POA, or the last 12 rounds he's played on POA. This is over the life of his putting splits, gains almost a half stroke. If we bang him against the Farmer, nothing great. 29th and a 41st. What about Genesis? A couple miscuts. What about Memorial? A 13th is his best, 18th recently. His U.S. Open, you could see the guy just shows up. He had a 7th at Pebble Beach, a 2nd before that. Yep, good stats on that. The WGC, and of course it's not his only, but on the PGA, his only victory is the Open. I think that was 2010. Look at WGC Mexico. That's concession. But this is Chapultepec here. So he's had like a 51st, a 25th, a 30th. So not pretty good. And did I pull up Arnold Palmer? Best finish was the 9th a while ago, but a couple miscuts and last. Let's see, Wells Fargo, a couple miscuts. So again, you can see, there's some things that could point you to not play Louis. Everything else is kind of just pointing me to play Louis and everything I know. And if he keeps up the way he's been putting, it's just been ridiculous. So just a smooth ball striker. We'll keep it in play, hit the greens, pretty good short game. Rose, I'm out. I'm just going to put it that way. You can see, just crazy and inconsistent. Now, don't get me wrong. I think he's even, I don't know if he's actually won a Farmers. I know Jason Day has won a couple times here. Let me take a look here. Yeah. So he won, he's had a good track record, actually, at the Farmers. So he won back in 2019. But yeah, pretty solid. So you can make a case for playing some Justin Rose. Going back on the Cam Smith train, you can see from a modeling perspective, he doesn't really pop up. But for what I'm looking for, around the green, I'm pretty shocked with this statistic. I think that, I don't know, that's just pulling off Poa. I cannot believe that he is 91st putting from 5 to 10 feet, but it is what it's saying. His best would have been a 4th place back in 2015. Not sure. I don't know if that was. So gains on Poa, almost a half stroke. I just want to see what U.S. Open that was off the top of my head, or where it was at. Okay, Chambers Bay. Was Poa, par 70. If we look at, while we're here, let's look at some of the other courses I was looking at. Farmers, past history. Let me hold on, let me get a little further. Miscut, they said a 9th, a 20th, a 33, so I'd give that a kind of C if I was rating it. Done pretty well at the Genesis, a 4th recently, a 6th place before that, only 1 miscut. The Memorial, couple miscut. Well, actually, I take that back. Out of 6 rounds, he had 4 miscuts. Only made a cut twice. He does not like Muirfield. I don't even know. I guess he must have played. I don't know. Let's take a look at the U.S. We just looked at the U.S. Open, but I wanted to see. He had a 72nd at Pebble Beach. WGC Mexico, a 22nd is the one I want right here. And this one here. So pretty good history there. Arnold Palmer, miscut recently, but a 34th before that. And then Wells Fargo, miscut. So you could make a case for not jumping on the Cam Smith train, but I'm going to ride it and hope that he hits a little more fairways. But he's around the green, and the putting, I think, should be able to carry him. Paul Casey, you see, ranks 2nd in my modeling. And the big model, the smaller model, he's just ticking everything. Decent history. Funny enough, they were talking about on the Golf Channel that he needs to beat Fitzpatrick in this event to qualify for the Olympics. So that was interesting. Like they're off by like a millionth of a point or something crazy like that. But you can see Poa is not Paul Casey's best suit or best putting surface. Let's see here. We go. You can see recent form, a 4th at the PGA. Valspar, of course, has done pretty well there with a couple wins. Let's go look at the Farmers. So he had a 28th, 2017. Nothing really else to talk about there. The Genesis likes to play Riviera. Best was a 2nd, but recently was a 37th. Memorial, a couple miscuts and a 13. The U.S. Open at Pebble Beach had a 21st. What about WGC Mexico, an 11th and a 3rd? Let me just check something. Did he play a concession? No, this is Chapultepec. So all these all those were the ones that we could use. 11th, a 3rd, a 12th, a 16th. So he likes that place. Arnold Palmer, a 10th, 41st. And lastly, but not least, Wells Fargo. Good showing at Quail Hollow. Okay. Let's skip over these guys. Just you can make a case for a lot of these guys. Of course, Phil, complete the Grand Slam. He's gotten there early. He's been doing a lot of reps. If Phil wins this event, I would mark it down. I think if he wins back-to-back majors at the age of 50, and then he'll be 51 when he tees off on Thursday, I think it would be the greatest accomplishment in golf ever history, as far as I'm concerned. So you can take that. Shane Lowry, like everything, of course, his recent results, he's been playing really good golf. Of course, he's your Open champion golfer of the year for 2 years now. He's had pretty good results. He had a T2 at a U.S. Open. Again, that would have been, I don't know if that was Aaron Hills or Shinnecock. Let's go pull up Shane. Gains on Poa. Of course, can play and win. It's crazy how much he can gain 2 strokes if it does get windy. Right now, the weather that I saw, I don't see really anything. And tee times are out right now for the 1st and 2nd round, of course. So you can go check that out. So he's played a little bit of Tory, a 7th, a 13th, a 33rd, and then a miscut. The Genesis, miscut, the one time he's played. Memorial recently at a 6, so he had good showing there. The U.S. Open, so at Pebble Beach, he had a 28th, and then I wanted to see. I mean, this is a while ago. Okay, Oakmont. Oakmont was a beast, so that's interesting. Where was I at? WGC Mexico. A 29th and a 62nd. That's the two we want to look at there. Arnold Palmer, bunch of miscuts, so no good at Bay Hill. And Wells Fargo, a 65th. Recently, a 34th and 24th. Okay, that's Shane Lowry. I like him, especially if it gets some weather. But right now, it looks pretty calm. Of course, you got Kokrak coming off the win at Charles Schwab. He had a little break between that, so I'm not worried about that. The guy's been putting great. For 7,600, I think he's, you can already see projected ownership at 16, over 16%. I think it's crazy not to play him. I think I bet him. I think he's 50 to 1, I think is what is. I don't know why. Why not? His skill set is not too far off for me, like a John Rahm. And once he had a putter, it's like, watch out for Jason Kokrak. Now, if that all stays, that's a whole different story. You can also look at his past experience at the Farmers. Let me type that out. So in the 20s. So even a top 20 bet would be a good place to go with him. 25th, 20th, 21st, 29th. So he can get around Torrey Pines, again, under different conditions, and also including the North course. Pretty solid on California courses. He had a second at Riviera in the past, but a 20 or 32nd recently. Look at the Memorial, a 62nd, a 35th. You look at, the U.S. Open. Didn't play at Pebble Beach. That's Winged Foot. Must not have qualified for that one. WGC Mexico. That's concession. And then a 51st at the Golf de Chapultepec. And Arnold Palmer recently an 8th and 18th at 10. So does pretty well at Bay Hill. And Wells Fargo at Quail at 69th. So for me, thumbs up on Kokrak. Of course, you can make a case for Gary Woodland. Showing some new recent form. Of course, won the U.S. Open at Pebble Beach. He just had a putting and short game extravaganza. You can see that's not typically what he does, but it turned on for that. But his ball striking's been there. So it could be a pretty decent play. You can make an argument for Sergio. I'm going to talk about him on some of my betting stuff. And I think got two guys left. Mark Leishman, tournament history at the U.S. Open, pretty solid. And, you can see nothing super fabulous. This, again, around the green, I think is somehow a little skewed. I think he's definitely a little better on the green. But Poa is a positive putting. Well, so over the last 12 rounds, it's a positive putting, or his last 12 rounds on Poa is positive. But over the life, it's showing a negative, which I think that's kind of interesting. But if we look at some of his past experience, of course, he won the Farmers back in 2020 at an 18th and 8th. I mean, the guy's played Torrey a ton, a couple seconds. So he does well at Torrey Pines under those conditions. The Genesis, again, California tracks. He's had a 4th, a 5th, a 15th at Riviera, a 17th, so he's played quite a bit of golf. Recently, a 32nd and a 43rd. Look at the Memorial. Again, pretty solid track record there. What'd you do at the U.S. Open in Pebble Beach? He had a 35th. His best finish ever at a U.S. Open's 18th, actually. WGC Mexico. He had a 42nd, a 62nd. So Chapultepec, nothing really too much to write home about there. Let me just scroll down and make sure I'm not missing. And let's see, Arnold Palmer, miscut, but won that back in 2017. Had a second in 2020. So does pretty well at Bay Hill. And Wells Fargo is 65th. Okay, my last but not least is going to be Max Homa. And you can see he's played U.S. Open twice and has never made the cut. One was in 2013, so that, but He missed the one at Wingfoot. If we go to Max, and it's pretty simple right out the bat. California guy. He's won the Genesis. And he also just won, and he's won the Wells Fargo. So two of the courses I'm looking at, he gains on POA over the life of his career, can play in the wind if it gets. He had a kind of a little downfall. So after his win at the Genesis, still pretty solid, and then the miscuts at the Masters and the Players kind of popped back for the Wells Fargo, and they went back to where he, I think it technically was to go defend his championship, and then a couple missed, but showed up again at the Memorial. So I like that. The Farmers, an 18th, a 9th at Torrey, so he's had some good success there. You look at the Genesis, of course he's won. He's at a 5th, a 37th. So he does well in his home state. He's at a 6th at the Memorial. That's just recently. The U.S. Open, a couple miscuts. WGC Mexico, a 21st. That doesn't count. I take that back. None of these are worth looking at. That was concession, not what I'm looking for. Arnold Palmer, he had a 10th recently and a 24th. And then Wells Fargo. Of course, he won back in 2000 and had that miscut. Had a terrible opening day Thursday. Okay, that's it for my analysis. Let's go wrap this up and give you my top 15 plays and, of course, my favorite bets. Okay, so to summarize my Fab Five, I am going with Jon Rahm. He is owed one for what happened at the Memorial. Impeccable course record here at Torrey. Of course, his first win was here. See no reason why he cannot win here. Everything points towards Jon Rahm winning. You got Xander Schauffele. No, I take that back. Jon Rahm has never won a major, so this would be his first major. But everything else points to him winning. Xander Schauffele, an amazing record in the U.S. Open. Nothing but top 5 finishes or better, pretty much. We'll say top 10 finishes. Of course, California kid. See everything kind of lines up for Xander to maybe possibly get his breakthrough win in a major. Patrick Cantlay, of course, another California kid. Has mixed successes, I would say, on the West Coast. But see that it looks like his putter's back. Of course, he had the unofficial win at the Memorial, but in good form. Of course, you got Patrick Reed there holding the recent Farmers Insurance Open Trophy. Good success record here at Torrey Pines. Also, just a grinder. This kind of track layout, the U.S. Open, everything just kind of fits Patrick's world. So see him doing well. And then, of course, Bryson DeChambeau, past winner at the U.S. Open at Wingfoot. And, of course, he also won at Arnold Palmer. Has had some success here on the west side. And also, I think the distance is going to be a crucial factor like he showed at Wingfoot, and the ability to get out of the rough with shorter irons and his steeper kind of attack on the approach shots. All right, my next 5. You got Max Homa, winner, of course, also a California kid. Wasn't really a theme I was going with, but it kind of does work out that way. Of course, he's won at the Genesis here recently at Riviera. Of course, he's also got the win at Quail Hollow. So 2 courses I was looking at. I don't think he's ever made a cut at the U.S. Open if I remember what we went through. Louis Oosthuizen, just a grinder. Putter is immaculate. Everything else he's doing typically does well in these kind of events. So look to see to get him, maybe a top 10 finish or better. Terrell Hatton, didn't have a lot of comparable courses that lined up, but, overall just a solid game. If he can keep his mind there, also puts well on POA. It's just with him, I think it's the attitude. As long as he stays, keeps a positive attitude, I think he could do well. You got Cam Smith, where some of the modeling doesn't say he'll do well. But again, I think I like his short game. I like his putting. And, as long as he keeps it somewhat in play, we should be good. And then you got Victor Hovland, just get back to doing what you do. Maybe have a little more success with the putter than you did recently, but just hit the fairways, hit greens, and make some putts. And then my last 5 is Shane Lowry, your current Open champion. He's been having, some really nice golf finishes. Been doing well with the putter. And it kind of just fits him, I think. He can play out of these kind of conditions. You got Kokrak, again, been playing great, coming off the win of Charles Schwab. It's got the distance, been doing well with approach. Got that new putter with an inch longer. It's been just killing it. You got Casey, overall solid game. I would say the one fall would be his putting. We just have to hope that he can make a few more putts on the POA. Finau, same thing, right? I mean, typically in these big events, shows up. He's got the length. He can play this course. It's all going to come down. Also, he's had a good success tracker at California tracks at the Farmers and at the Genesis. So hopefully that rolls over. And then last but not least, Mark Leishman. And yeah, I like everything that Leishman. Of course, he's won here in the past, had a good success track record at Torrey. And also, just side note, put an extra. I picked him as one of the winners that I like at 80 to 1. I think he could be very live from the putting perspective and his course track record. So that is my top 15 DFS plays, and also threw in one of my favorite bets. And that's a good segue to discuss my favorite bets. So here we go. So first round leader, I like Sergio Garcia. He, if you remember, I've been watching quite a bit. Some of his first rounds, he's come out and really shot well. It's kind of what happens after that. But it's all going to come down to putter with him. But as in the length and hitting, I think he was number 3 off the tee compared to the field for the 2021 season. So if he can keep smashing that driver, hitting fairways, hitting those long irons, got a good short game. It's just the putter. And then next would be Max Homa. There's 2 different bets I like that I placed. So they're paying out 3.5 to 1 for him to have a top 20 finish after round 1. That's a rarity. I don't usually see these. Maybe it's because it's a major. But I like him to have, be in the top 20 after round 1. And also I like to bet 90 to 1 for him to win. You know what? I mean, all these, way better chance that these guys will win this tournament than Phil Mickelson was going to win the PGA. And on that note, I got Matthew Wolff back in the field. And we haven't seen him in, I don't know, over a month at least, where he withdrew from the PGA. But he's here. Also a California kid. We already know what he can do, just like, of course, DeChambeau did at Wingfoot, where he came in second. The guy can just smoke it. Now, if he's got it back to where he knows where the tee ball is at least somewhat going, he's pretty solid on approach, and, he's a pretty decent putter. So 200 to 1, I would have, if you would have asked me this question, 5-6 months ago, do I think that Matthew Wolff will do well at Torrey Pines for the U.S. Open? Yes, no doubt in my mind. He would have been probably cost about, upper 9s on DFS, and there's no way you'd be getting 200 to 1 odds. So he is my long shot, and of course I've been fading the heck out of him for a while, but we haven't seen him in a while. So maybe he's got some things worked out, and maybe we can have another 200 to 1 winner at the next at the Open. So that is my favorite bets. I hope that helps you guys get a little better understanding of who you want to play. Of course, it's all the kind of analysis at a high level what I've been doing, and those are my picks. So if you like what I'm doing, again, please click the like button. Helps me, helps the show. Share with anybody else, trying to grow the subscribe base. And on that note, if you've been watching and you like what I do, also please subscribe. It keeps me doing what I'm doing. And last but not least, hit me up on Twitter at DFS Golf Guru if I can help you. If you have any questions or anything that you just want to bounce off me, you can also hit me up on YouTube comments, either or. All right, I will tomorrow have out my value play show, everything we need to know before the lock, ownership projections, weather, you name it. I'll be watching the pressers, everything that I can glean. And if I have any little tidbits, I will let you guys know. So check me out tomorrow on the value play show, and all the best of luck to us. Talk to you guys later.